First up on the show is Emad Guirguis, the owner of Simpli Bookkeeping and an expert at bookkeeping and financial analysis for businesses. Emad, welcome back to the show.
Thanks again, Marc.
All right. So, Heather, did you want to start this one off with?
Oh, well, sure. So, a little off topic, but kind of on topic for what we talked about, because we ended the last show kind of talking about getting started in business and making it through your first few years to have the ability to look back on your activity and see what worked for you and grow your business from there. So, Emad, before we really jump into the bookkeeping side, you're a business owner. You've been around. You are around everywhere. Everybody knows you. Mm-hmm. And you get to see people's books.
Yep.
When they're in 1 to 2 years versus just starting, is there generally a story there that you can kind of speak on?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Heather, most business owners, they want to grow. Wouldn't y'all agree?
Yeah.
So I would say right between that first year to second year, a lot of business owners start to transition from solopreneurs to starting to have a mini team. And that's a big change for a lot of business owners, because you go from controlling everything in a way to managing everything to now having to become comfortable with delegating some things out, letting some things go. And so making that transition is really, really important for business owners, because that's the only way they're going to be able to scale up and actually reach the next level, which, you know, they always say teamwork makes the dream work. Mm-hmm. So it's really that transition that we like to emphasize on. And as we see it happen more often within businesses, we let those business owners know, specifically if they're in their first year, reaching their second year, hey, by the way, you know, this next stage, if you do want to, break into the, 6 figures and above, this is what you're looking at. So to kind of prepare and plan for it.
And you own your business as well. And I would imagine of anybody, you're good with your numbers, right?
You could say so. I'm all right.
I would hope so. So being able to make those decisions based on numbers, do a lot of people come to you as their bookkeeper to make that decision, or do they generally jump into it and then come talk to you after?
You know, I always catch it before, because the good thing is
except with me, right?
Not with Marc.
Well, Marc, you're just doing so good. You know, we're just letting you fly.
I think when I hired Emad, I probably had like 8 or 9, and now I'm up to about 15. So
yeah.
he probably had no idea.
Yeah, no, Marc hires a new person every week. I can't keep up with this guy, but for most typical traditional businesses, they'll hire, their first employee within that second year. Mm-hmm. And then it's usually, depending on their growth scale, they're usually hiring maybe every 6 months or so. So it's right before they hire that first person is where we want to kind of educate them a little bit and let them know, okay, these are the steps, these are procedures you might want to look out for, because, it happens from business to business.
And I know, you can go ahead if you have a question. I know a lot of businesses see those, to Priscilla's point from the last episodes, the peaks and the valleys, the busy seasons and the low seasons. When are they generally talking to you about that, during a peak or during a low?
So during a peak season, and a lot of business owners, new business owners actually fall into this, is they get so busy, they forget everything else. Right. And wouldn't you say so, Marc?
Well, yeah, it kind of runs into it's like a storm of activity that's going on, and you're trying to just maintain what you have. And probably if you're a real entrepreneur, you're trying to grow at the same time. It's exactly. A crazy life.
Yep. And unless you've experienced, a peak time, like maybe 3 or 4 times, you would know what to expect, right? So if it's your first time, your second time, a lot of business owners, they get flustered, they're unsure, they're still trying to grow, like Marc said, and they're trying to do everything else. So it's understanding when your peak season is and when your low season is, help prepare and plan for those, so that you can kind of anticipate, okay, you plan during your slow seasons and then you grow during your peak seasons. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how we plan
for having a bookkeeper, pay attention to the numbers, right? That's super, that's like you're ahead of the curve, I think, if you're doing it. Because not everybody has a bookkeeper. They're kind of pretending to be their own bookkeeper and try and, hold on by the seat of their pants at home, trying to figure this stuff out. But when you have that data, you have those numbers, you can plan, you can evaluate, even to Priscilla's point before when we were talking about journaling, but it's this slow down document so you can reflect and plan. So how do you do that from the bookkeeper's perspective for businesses?
So you'd be surprised. You can actually tell a lot from numbers, right? You could see where revenues are, income's coming from, what sources they're coming from. You can also see where expenses are going through. So let's say you've got a business where there's a lot of like cost of goods. You could tell by the correlation of income to cost of goods ratio and see, okay, where your strong months are and where your slower months are, because you probably won't be buying as much products if it's going to be a slow month, and vice versa. It's got to reflect within the income as well. So you take all that into consideration. Some expenses, yes, they're consistent. Like, let's say, for example, insurance, right? Insurance is going to stay consistent throughout the 12 months, but you want to look at those varying factors like cost of goods and see how it can reflect.
And what would you say to someone who says, you know, my numbers are always going to be from the month before, so it feels reactive?
So if honestly, if they tell me that, I would almost be kind of proud with them, because a lot of people will not say a month before. They'll say, oh, you know, if, and this is a big if, they had a bookkeeper, most bookkeepers out there have a 3-month delay. And so,
oh, wow.
And that's if they have a bookkeeper. Now, if they don't even have a bookkeeper, they're usually 6 months to a year, which is, you know, the whole shoebox concept, right? Here we are, it's December. Pull the shoebox out from the under the bed and figure out where all the money's gone. So we don't want to use that theory anymore, because it's not really, you can't predict on it. Maybe in the beginning it's okay because you're growing and wearing all these hats, but eventually, if you want to grow continuously, then you've got to come with a better theory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of the businesses I work with were getting the monthly P&Ls. Now, whether they're actually read or not, that's different. But yeah, so from my experience, those monthly P&Ls, it may be reactive to look at them after the fact, but they can tell you a lot about where your money is going and how you can take activity to change it. Have you seen big impacts from that type of reactivity, I guess we call it?
Yes. Like, we're going to take an industry, for example. Let's go with HVAC. HVAC companies tend to do better in the hot seasons, right?
Mm-hmm. What?
So, oh, right.
What?
Shocking.
So, I mean, we're in Texas, right? Hot season's going to be, I mean, for us most of the year, but I would say April, May until October.
Yeah.
And so during those slower months, November through February, we want to plan for those months, because what's the one thing we don't want to stop doing, Mark?
Earning money.
Well, that too, and
paying our people
and marketing, right?
He's fishing for something. We missed it.
Yeah. It's like once you get the momentum going, and then people will want to take a break. It's like you can't take a break from marketing. You just need to delegate it.
That's right. That's right. And that's the most important time, is to market during slow times, because when it does become busy, you want to be on top of the curve, rather than when everyone tries to flood the internet or however you're marketing. You don't want to be at the bottom because you were too late.
Yeah, it's like Facebook ads. I'm not a huge fan of that business, because it's so saturated that people are looking there for that Hail Mary pass to be able to just throw their stuff out there. But what they don't realize is you're competing against everybody else, not just in the space, but also once they've tagged you as interested in air conditioning repair, for example, then you're going to get contacted by a lot of people. So now you've entered into a situation where you're competing against a lot of other different folks who, you know, if you're an HVAC company, you're competing against a lot of different HVAC companies for that business. And that's where, like, telemarketing, for example, can be an advantage, because you're catching somebody when they're not necessarily in that market. So to your point, it's when it's top of mind for the consumer isn't always the best time to do your marketing.
Right.
That's my point.
Right. Yeah. And same with budgeting as well. So it's, you want to make sure that you've budgeted correctly for those slow months to make sure that you're still keeping up with business. Like you said, paying your employees, making sure you're still on top of your marketing, making sure, the lights are still on, and not have one off season or slow season, put you under, because that would not be good for a business owner.
Yeah, I feel like everyone is shooting for consistency in our world. Like, we all want to have consistent income, consistent sales. And unfortunately, the reality is most industries are cyclical. We're going to have up months and down months. But how many cringes do you get when you say the word budget?
A lot. People get scared a little bit.
I feel like people just have such a negative term around budgets. Like, how do you fix the inconsistency of our industry? Like, you could just budget for it. And then they're like, ugh.
Yeah. They're like, well, we checked the bank yesterday and there was a little bit of money in there. We're doing okay. And it's like, well,
I remember one I heard is like, I can't be out of money. I still have checks. Back in the day, right? So let's talk about consistency. To Heather's point, people want consistency, but they want consistency in rewards or benefit, not necessarily an output. Right. Or in the hard stuff, which is watching your numbers, for example, right? And making sure that that's taken care of. There's consistency, but that's like in input. We want the consistency on output, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if we just renamed budget to like strategic planning? So what does strategic planning with your clients look like?
So strategic planning would look like understanding that. So first, it's coming up with a good set of data, which is good bookkeeping, right? Because we can't do much with bad data or no data. So first things first, come up with some good data and make sure that we understand the data. From there, then we help our clients understand, okay, where are your slow months, and identify those. In case they're not sure, it's really important to make sure we identify those. And then we delve a little bit deeper into understanding more in depth of the business itself. So whatever product or service they're providing, we want to understand a little bit more of those and understand, okay, exactly which products are you really getting most of your revenue in from. And then we can start focusing in a little more on those hot items and helping that business owner market those and be able to make those more appealing to their consumers. So that's kind of in that strategic planning that you had mentioned. And yes, part of it is budgeting. And then the other part of it is planning within their business to understand that, okay, this is actually how we're going to get you to the next level. It's not just, sell as many possible products that we can, and then hopefully, we'll make a little bit of money. Eventually, you'll see a trend of, okay, there's a few select items that are really bringing us in our most revenue.
Cool. What I've found is a lot of people, when they have any kind of issue they want to overcome, the answer seems to be increase revenue.
It's a catchy phrase.
It is a catchy phrase. Just make more money, outrun the problems. But it's actually surprising. I'll hear companies that make a lot of gross revenue, and I don't really care about gross revenue. I care about net revenue, right? How much are you netting at the end of the day? Because that's what truly matters, is how much are you keeping.
Yeah.
Well, as you're talking about business owners, in the beginning, make as much money as you can, appeal to as many clients or consumers as you can. But then there comes a time where then you've got to put some strategy into the game. And that's when it becomes, okay, we figured out how to make a little bit of money. Now let's figure out how we can actually keep that money. Because there's two parts of the game here. There's one, which is making some money. And then the other part is actually keeping it and not making sure that it all just gets dispersed.
Yeah, my wife would like your attitude.
I think it's just the work smarter, not harder. After you get past the initial survival phase, it's when you have the luxury to start looking at how can you make this smarter. And you don't have to always be down nose to the grindstone hustling. Sometimes you just got to put some strategic thought into it.
Exactly.
And that's a big place where you can come in and add a lot of value, I feel like. So this is, I think you said, included for your clients. How do people get a hold of you if they are not a client of yours?
Yes, the best way is to give us a phone call at either myself or one of our team members at 832-518-9368. And you can actually call or text this number. Again, it's 832-518-9368. And either myself or one of our team members will get back to you as soon as possible.
Thanks, Emad. Great segment as always.
Houston
Thanks,
number.
Mark. Thanks, Heather.
Is that what that is? Houston?
It's the Houston number.
Oh, okay.
I just moved back from Houston.
We don't speak of Houston anymore.
But we keep the cell
It's
phone
the
number.
city that shall not be named, right?